A few weeks ago, I covered the original Red Faction. One of the most common comments I got was something along the lines of, "Man, I feel sorry for you when you get to Red Faction 2, that game is so bad." So let's ask, how bad is Red Faction 2 really? Hey, Jarek here, and before we get going, I'll quickly announce that I have finally turned on YouTube memberships. I have delayed enabling that for a really long time for I'm not sure what reason. YouTube members will get shoutouts every video and also get to see my videos ahead of time. Usually 1 week ahead of time, but if I'm really grinding videos out, you may be able to see them a month ahead of time. I wanted to keep that the same price as people subscribing on Twitch, so you'll get the same reward. Now let's talk about Red Faction 2. First things first, I played this on PC, and you'll need to do a few fixes to run this on modern machines. The first one is that you'll have to run widescreen fixer. This game was not made with 16:9 aspect ratios in mind. If you try to play this in widescreen, everything will be stretched without this fix. This game will also allow you to change the FOV compared to the initial awful 67 FOV. This doesn't break anything as this doesn't change the gun model FOV, so the gun models are going to look a little bit scrunched up in your face, but I guess that's better than seeing through your arms. Once you do that, the game runs more or less fine on PC with one odd problem. Cutscenes are always a very low resolution. I mean 640 by so-and-so resolution, like that small. And I don't just mean the FMVs are low resolution so they're all pixelated. No, I mean the actual executable of the game goes down to that resolution. This was doubly annoying as I was streaming because when this happened, it throws all my windows on my second screen everywhere, so I can't see my chat, I can't see OBS, I can't see anything. This is pretty unacceptable even for back in 2002 when this game launched. This is really annoying if you're running with multiple monitors, as most people are nowadays, and even more annoying again if you're streaming. Another issue is the controls. Now, mouse aim feels fine and controls for the most part work as intended, but you get so many guns in this game that you have so many key bindings you need to worry about. Look at all of this. There is way too many things to bind. They really should have done what they did in Red Faction 1, which was just copy Half-Life 1 and have a drop-down menu at the top of your screen. Because either you're stretching your hand across the entire keyboard to get to a gun you want to use at that moment, or you're having to use your mouse scroll to scroll down to find that gun. I don't know why they didn't just do what they did with the first game. This is just worse. But okay, with that out of the way, let's talk about the actual game. The graphics suck. To be fair, this is 2002, but even for 2002, this game just doesn't look good. It's a lot of corridors with pretty basic lighting. I mean, to give you an idea, Time Splitters 2, Turok Evolution, Metroid Prime, even Iron Storm looks better than this game, and they all came out the same year. The story is also worse than Red Faction 1 in about every single way. It's not explained very well, especially not at the very beginning. At the beginning, you're just kind of dumped into a combat section. Who are these people? Who am I? Why am I fighting people? What is going on? Well, at the end of this mission, apparently you're stealing some advanced nanotechnology. Then the cutscene abruptly jumps forward 2 years without really explaining that either. And now you're working for the Rebels, who are Red Faction, and they're only called Red Faction because that's the name of the franchise. This is not related to Red Faction 1 at all. Your squad has two different types of characters. The first one is your rough, tough guy who looks like he fits in a Power Man 5000 music video, except for he's not cool and doesn't make good music. And the second one is your typical sexy badass chick who talks like she's in a softcore
Hey, alien. You hear all that nonsense? I know how to handle these things. Way to go, hero.
Also, if you haven't noticed, the audio mixing is really bad. I found out very quickly that if you turn up the speech volume in-game, it also turns up the sound effects of gunshots. For some reason, gunshots and voice volume are in the same audio setting, even though there's clearly a sound effects volume slider too. The end result is like when you're watching a movie and the quiet parts are way too quiet, so you turn it up and then you get your ears blown out by an explosion. It's genuinely difficult to hear what people are saying in-game. All the sound effects just kind of mashed together into a mess. About halfway through the game, you kill the supposedly big bad guy, although he's not explained very well. I don't really know who he is. I will say the way you kill him is hilarious though.
Respect Sopot! Fear Sopot! Sopot is your master!
For the honor of the Commonwealth, get your ass into the silo.
I command you to surrender!
A little too late for that one. After doing this, your squad randomly turns on you. This sets up the second half of the game, in which all of the members of your squad turn into bosses. I'll talk about that later, keep that in mind. As you are playing throughout the game, there will be these green and red icons in the top left.
And new, I don't think it was ever actually fresh. Jesus Christ, what is happening? Stop! I got negative karma for that, but it was fucking worth it.
This signifies whether you did something good or bad, as this game has multiple endings. Kind of. Again, keep that in your mind, I'll talk about it later. For now, let's talk about the gameplay. And first and foremost, the thing that stands out right away, the gunplay feels like shit. Man, these guns have no impact. You shoot at an enemy and I'm not even sure my bullets are hitting them. They don't even react to it. And then when they die, they just kind of finally fall over. The only time you get a reasonable response is if you shoot them with an explosive, then they jib. But I really can't stress this enough. These guns feel awful. There's not really any feedback in the recoil. There's just kind of this random cone spread in front of you. Enemies don't react to you, as I've said. This is one of the most important things you need to get right with a shooter. The good gunplay. That is how you interact with the world around you. And if interacting with the world around you isn't fun, your game is probably not going to be fun.
This game also does something that I despise. No matter how good or bad your game is, I consider this completely unforgivable. Once you start reloading, you can't stop reloading. Reloading animations are rather slow in this game, and it takes quite a while to swap weapons. It's incredibly frustrating to take a ton of damage because you can't stop yourself from reloading. Do my arms have their own mind? Why can't I stop? It's not even like you can quick switch in this game anyway. Like I said, the animations to swap weapons take way too long. One way or another, you're going to be taking damage there. Just let me stop reloading.
Ironically, shooting the environment has more of a reaction than shooting your enemies. At least most of the time. It brings up the destructible environment of the first game, but once again, it's rather scripted. This can lead to a lot of confusion of me walking around back and forth not knowing what the hell to do just to find out I needed to shoot a barrel even though I already tried to shoot a hole in that wall, but no, those barrels that don't look explosive at all, that's the way you blow up the wall. You can't just blow up anything you see. Although there definitely is more destructibility in this one than in the original Red Faction. To clarify, I'm talking single player here, I am not talking multiplayer. I know the multiplayer has a lot more of this. Trust me, I'm more than well aware of that. I got so many comments trying to tell me that in the first one, but again, I'm only talking about the campaign. I found the weapons to be less interesting too. In Red Faction 1, there was quite a few weapons with weird alternate firing modes, and they just had cool designs. For example, this MP5K that has a magwell that accepts both 9mm and 5.56 mags at the same time, completely impractical, but your split function turns your SMG MP5K into an assault rifle. It's kind of cursed, but I remember it. I didn't really have that response with any of the weapons in this game. The only one I think got an upgrade was the shotgun. It's just more effective, it more or less works in the same way though. The split function fires a strong shot that will light enemies on fire, but again, it's the same function, it just does more damage and is slower. Other than that, you get so many weapons that all seem to do the same thing and are rather redundant. The few times they aren't redundant, they seem to have been nerfed in the first game. For example, the railgun. It can still shoot through walls, but they changed how the scope works, so it's kind of hard to see your target. But at least enemies aren't killing you non-stop with these things out of nowhere. Truthfully, the title of this video should be How Boring is Red Faction 2, because it's not necessarily awful, it's just so mind-numbingly boring. It is extremely repetitive. You are going to be walking down the same looking hallways for hours, shooting the same enemy over and over and over. And I really do mean these enemies are all the same. Some of them look different, but they're all the same dudes holding guns shooting at you. Once you've shot a couple of these enemies, you've basically played the whole game. There's a few exceptions where they try to throw different enemies at you, but instead of these being boring, they're just highly annoying. For example, small spider bots that jump at you and explode. These are small targets that can spawn anywhere and jump at you from any direction and do a lot of damage. Yeah, they're not fun. To make things even worse, this game has a huge clown closet problem. Very often, enemies will continuously spawn until you manage to push through them and get to their spawn where they will stop spawning. I hate this. This is a huge pet peeve of mine. Any game that does this immediately ruins the combat for me. Adding more enemies for the sake of more enemies doesn't make the game more fun, it just turns it into work. Overall, at any given moment in this game, you'll be doing one of 4 things. You'll either be shooting the same enemies down same looking boring corridors, or you'll be doing a defense section that lasts way too long, like here you're just shooting back against snipers forever until someone randomly shows up. Or you'll be doing on-a-rail segments that last way too long. On-a-rail segments are never fun. Why make them last 10 minutes each? This game is pretty short. It's only about 3 hours long. On-a-rail segments take up 30 minutes of that. And the 4th thing you'll be doing is the vehicle sections, which are actually a bit hit or miss. The submarine sucks. It has very similar issues to the rest of the game. It's just repetitive. You'll be going along underwater in these same looking areas, fighting only one enemy, just other submarines with very slow torpedoes with aim that feels like you're dragging it underwater, because you are. But wait, there is another enemy. Mines that chase you. Oh boy, that's entertaining. Yeah, just like I said, it's like the rest of the game where you're going down boring corridors fighting boring enemies until the spider mines pop up, then it's annoying. On the flip side, the other vehicle is actually kind of okay. It's the mech. Although this immediately led to confusion for me because they never explained that if you press the jump button, you'll have a rocket launcher. By default, left click and right click will fire your miniguns, and the grenade button will fire an incendiary grenade. But again, they don't tell you about this rocket launcher, and you need this to continue. Once you know this, it again can actually be fun. But aside from this tank segment, the game feels like it's padding its time pretty hard. I mean, non-stop defense sections and on-a-rail segments are definitely padding their time. But there's actually one more thing you might be doing, and that's fighting the bosses, which are pretty underwhelming. They're more or less like any of the other enemies in the game, except for they have a health bar. You don't need to do anything different, there's no puzzle to beat them, you just shoot them a bunch until they stop living. At least there's a health bar so you know how close they are to being dead though. But again, they're not really anything of note, except for the last boss, and not for good reason. Before I even get to the last boss, I have to talk about this cutscene.
Today's sacrifice brings tomorrow's abundance.
Goodbye, Alias.
Fight! Fight, I say! Do not tell me that we cannot. We must! We must crush the Red Faction! We cannot tolerate these traitors in our midst!
Man, what a truly amazing cutscene.
Better at flirting than fighting.
This is one cool boss that I'm chucked into right away.
Okay, what is she doing here? That little shield wouldn't protect you against a gun, he could just shoot your head or whatever. Secondly, he's holding a railgun that shoots through cover. Why did she think jumping out the window and dropping a grenade was the best option here? There's 2 of you, and 1 of him. Why do that? Anyway, this final boss sucks. It immediately chucks you into the fire. You have a mech about 5 feet away. You're in one circular room with a wall in the middle of it, and that wall can be destroyed. But not even that is enough, because when you beat the mech, he pops out of the mech with a railgun that can instantly murder you. To make things even better, this game has no checkpoints. So if you die at any moment on any level, you're doing the whole level over again. In the case of this boss fight, you start back before he got out of his mech, and you have to watch the cutscene because you can't skip it. Yeah, ain't that some shit? Now, for the most part, this game is actually pretty easy. You may have moments where enemies suddenly decide to aimbot and murder you, but it's pretty lenient on your health. You get 3 health kits, which basically just give you another life bar. You effectively have 4 health bars. However, enemies will see you and start shooting at you before they even turn to shoot you, and this can lead to situations like this.
You won't have time to say your prayers.
Wow. Okay. I mean, he wasn't wrong.
Not even frustrating or overly difficult, just stupid. Anyway, back to this final boss. Once you finally beat him, you get your final cutscene. And remember how I said this game has multiple endings? Well, that's sort of a lie, because every cutscene is the same but with a different narration.
Alias was decorated for his acts of valor and eventually accepted a position as military advisor to the newly formed Red Faction government. Alias was branded a mutant and a danger to the Commonwealth. At a public ceremony, he was stripped of his citizenship and sentenced to death. He managed a daring escape just prior to public execution and was never heard from again.
literally the same thing except for they changed the cheering for booing.
Every different ending combined in a video is only 3 minutes long. This is your reward for beating that final boss. This is your reward for playing this game. Needless to say, this game is not good. It's really not worth your time, and I would not recommend playing it. And it's the worst kind of bad, because it's not even interesting, it's just boring. There's no playing it for the funny haha this game is bad factor, it's just mind-numbingly tiring to play. I really can't say much more. I would not recommend this game at all, and people that tried to warn me about it were 100% right. I heard you, but I mean, this is my job at this point. So thank you. Thank you for everyone that joined me on Twitch while I was streaming this game. I am not playing bad games in vain because people do seem to enjoy it. And that will sum up this video. As a reminder, YouTube memberships are now open, and if you want to go follow me and subscribe on Twitch, link down in the bottom right. I'll see you next video.